you so much for joining me on the Creative Awakening Now podcast. I'm your host, David Matters, and I'm here to bring you stories, interviews, and insights relating to the topics of creativity, inspiration, and practice. My intention is to connect with other people who employ a heart-centered approach to the artistic process and to share this profoundly inspiring content with anyone who cares to hear it. I hope you enjoy. This is a dream, and a dream is never the same. Shower me with some cold water so I feel something, that burn my skin. My guest this week was Lucas Wolf. Lucas Wolf is a South Dakota-born, Arizona-raised singer-songwriter and yoga teacher, currently touring the western region of the United States. He has supported bands such as Robert Randolph and the Family Band, Leftover Salmon, Lion Vibes, Gipsy Moon, Mountain Standard Time, and more. He writes heartfelt, thoughtful lyrics, and his songs are delivered with passion and sincerity, each and every time. Once upon a time, he lived as a wandering, hitch-hiking busker, playing his music from town to town, never knowing where he would end up next. As time went on, life on a never-ending road lost its allure, and he decided to stay put a while and pour himself fully into his music. He is currently promoting his full-length studio album, Falling Into Place. And Lucas is also a close personal friend of mine. We go into a lot of some reminiscing in this episode. It was super nice to catch up and see where he's at. We spent a couple years together on the road, traveling, hitchhiking, playing music, and we even actually had a little band together back in the day. And so we had a lot of life experiences in common. So it was really cool to touch on that. And when I contacted him, not only was because he's been doing a lot musically and he just got a Kickstarter funded and he's got a new album and stuff, but it was also I knew I could count on him to be honest about his life experience, and I wanted to get into that, like the kind of the grittier side of the creative process, and some of the alchemy that can be found there from turning those dark times into to light through creativity and music. And his life is an example of that. He's doing great things, and it's really awesome to see him doing that. And his music's just absolutely flowering and becoming such a beautiful thing and inspiring for a lot of people. So yeah, it was really awesome to have him on the show. Really awesome to catch up and connect on all this stuff. And I hope you guys will check out what he's got going on. I'll have the links posted up as always. He's teaching yoga classes in the Boulder area now, so hit him up on that. Be sure to check him out live and check out his new recordings that he's got going on, because it's really good stuff. And I'll have some of that in this show. I'll have another one of his full songs at the end. This is obviously him in the background now. But yeah, thank you guys again for tuning in, as always. Thanks for keeping in touch with my work and stuff. Be sure to check out creativeawakeningnow.com, sign up for the mailing list, get my free ebook. Check out everything I got going on with my writing and my music with my band Life Like Water. You can find all that at creativeawakeningnow.com. And if you guys want to support the podcast, please listen to it wherever you can. Leave a rating, review, comment. Any of those things help immensely. So I'd be very grateful if you could do those things. And I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Much love. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And thank you, Lucas, for being here with me today.
My pleasure, man.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see all that you've been doing musically. And I'd love for you just to kind of give us a little bit of your background and, what put you on the creative path and kind of where it's taken you up until this point and how you are currently doing.
Let's see here. I don't know, how far do you want me to go back?
As far as is relevant,
Okay, well, I guess it is relevant. So just to kind of brush over it briefly, my childhood was pretty interesting. It was a balance of moments of, complete chaos and madness, and then kind of woven in with moments of complete wholesomeness and security. And so, because I grew up with my mom, who died about 4.5 years ago, and she was a hardcore alcoholic, and she always found these dudes that were abusive. And so when I was with her and she had a man, 9 times out of 10, the dude was a fucking asshole. Can I swear?
Yeah, man, it's all right.
Dudes were fucking assholes. And so I had to deal with that. But then I moved in with my aunt and uncle from 4th to 6th grade, or 4th and 5th grade. And that was super wholesome. Had my cousin Bradley and Jamie that I lived with. And sorry, I'm trying to gain my train of thought. So, I played sports, and my aunt and uncle were, great mother and father figure. And then I moved back in with my mom, and then she found this other guy she got married to, and he was a pretty big piece of shit. So it was pretty much perpetual fear every weekend, because they would drink, and then he would just, beat her. And then I got to the point where I, kind of got fed up with it and started whooping his ass. And when I was about 12 years old, there's kind of a couple blackout moments where I went off and don't remember what I actually did. I just remember the effect of, kind of this bloodied, drunken, nonsensical human being. And that was when my mom, kind of knowingly put me on a plane to Arizona from Utah, was where we were living at the time. And then I moved in with my grandparents. And so that was very wholesome, very secure, kind of middle class place. And they wanted a guitar. They supported my musical endeavors. And that's kind of when I started to learn and write. And then went off to college and knew I didn't want to be there. And, one thing led to another. And I was sitting in a, hey, don't be trying, you can't type. You don't have opposable thumbs, bud. My dog's trying to touch the laptop. I think he notices you now.
Yeah.
So sitting in a bar, after work, I was working at the Gordon Biersch Brewery, and I was sitting at a bar, and I'd been kind of contemplating leaving Arizona and just hitchhiking. Years before that, I wanted to just travel and surf and play music, but surfing wasn't really a priority at that time. So I was listening to Atmosphere, the rapper based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I was listening to him in my iPod, and looked up at the screen. I think I had 2 Guinnesses. So for me at the time, I was fairly sober. And I noticed that the Minnesota Twins came on the screen at this bar on ESPN. And then I was just like, okay, there's another sign. And then I walked out of the bar to get back to my buddy's house that I was house sitting while he was out of town. And the first license plate I saw was Minnesota license plate. And then I just said, all right, if there's one more sign, I'm going to pack my and just hitchhike to Minnesota. And so I went back to his house. I changed into my swimsuit, grabbed a beer over at the Circle K right by, and I went over and just swimming around, chilling in the pool. And this couple started chatting with me, and I was just like, where are you guys from? They're like, oh, we're visiting our friend who's at work right now, and we're from Minnesota. And I was just like, well, shit. And so the next morning, I it was a crappy JanSport backpack. I think I only had dress shoes and a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. And it was just that, and I had a Martin DX1 at the time, and got a ride from some, interesting cat to the North Phoenix, and then caught a ride from a Purple Heart vet who was drinking Foster cans on the way up, and he's like, no one ever fucking pulls me over, man, because he had the Purple Heart license plate. And then that was it, man. Met a trucker right off of this gas station. After that guy dropped me off, I met Arthur Yarrington, who's a trucker out of Maine, and he took me all the way to Springfield, Illinois, bought me a Greyhound ticket to Minneapolis, and then some dude handed me a bunch of mushrooms while I was waiting for my Greyhound. And that was kind of the beginning of the hitchhiking and songwriting and really finding my voice as a musician. And then kind of, I think, as I got a little older, although I was still very much a fool, I think my songwriting got a little stronger, because I'd experienced a lot more life. So that was that's the rundown of the beginning.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's very vivid. Some of those memories are so crystal clear for you. That's great.
Oh yeah, dude. I definitely got a steel trap for the most part.
Yeah.
And I was drinking a lot of whiskey, but
well, that'll happen.
I unfortunately remember plenty of that too.
Yeah.
water real quick.
Well, that's, just because I know you and I know your story, I don't know how many years after that you and I met and our lives kind of intersected and the whole thing. But at the point where we met up, must have been some years later. We were both in our mid 20s or so. Um, you were already very steeped in songwriting, as was I, and it was definitely a part of your identity. The kind of the whole trial of your childhood and your travels and everything like that, and that was something that I think drew us together, in a friendship and also like creatively. We were always sharing songs together and kind of going back and forth with that whole thing, and that was something that always struck me about your music was that it contained a really poetic grasp of what you'd gone through, and a lot of it was some darker stuff. And I'm just curious if you could kind of elaborate a little more on that, like how you kind of turned those moments into songwriting and what that was like for you.
It was,
And try and talk
very
up closer to the computer if you can.
oh yeah. It was pretty effortless, a lot because that was what I knew. It was like I think internally I was trying to sort out. I knew that although I was in the throes of alcohol and kind of some of the negative side effects that alcohol brings when you're, I mean, I was a pretty full-fledged raging alcoholic, and although most of the time I was, probably more annoying with some levity, I definitely dropped into some darker moments, and I think that I just knew that that wasn't who I was, and it certainly wasn't who I wanted to be. So I think that kind of as I was trying to peel myself out of that on this internal space, because it took a long time to get to the point where I could, even go like 9 days to 2 weeks without a drink. But I think in the songwriting was where I began to kind of discover the way out. And not that I've, entirely found the way out because I'm still actively in recovery, but, obviously I figured it out a lot more than I did when I was 26 or 25. And so the way that I've written songs is like I usually come up with a melody that I like, and then I just start to just kind of let go. And then words will come, and I'll pick the ones that I like that came, and then that's kind of where the theme and foundation started. And then I would put more thought into it. So I'd like, I'd get one line like, I think Birds I wrote right after I reconnected with you when you moved out here to go to Naropa. It was like, I was just sitting there thinking, I'm like, man, I got to get out of this shit. It's like, drinking and doing embarrassing stuff and like just wanting to be the person that I felt like I really was. And then that line came in, like, take me back to where the birds sing. And so that kind of was the beginning of that song. And then I was able to kind of theme thoughts and emotions around it. And, just be quite honest, with certain lines that never really felt like I needed to filter much. I'm always been pretty candid and outspoken about my darker times for the most part. But really, I think that a lot, and to this day, it's a lot of my songwriting still comes from a darker place. But me and my personality, normally when I'm at my best, I'm a pretty fun, happy-going, happy-go-lucky person. And that comes very naturally to be kind of a caretaker. I'm very generous and caring, and I really feel people around me, and I genuinely care about them. But I still have plenty of darkness to go through and a lot of healing to go through. So I think that my songwriting is really my own therapy, and it just so happens to, speak to a large population.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those darker times are often the things that really draw us all together because in our own way we go through that. And I know for me personally, like, especially in you and I were in the thick of it together when I was drinking far too much and making bad decisions and living on the streets feeling hopeless. The one thing that would kind of console me or at least make me feel like I had meaning in my life was creativity. And the deeper I went into that, the more it resonated with other people. And that's a theme that keeps coming up on my show, that it's kind of this paradox of like the more personal you make a song, the more universal it becomes. It's like when you really get into the depths of it and it's this thing that's all about your personal experience, like very, singular in your mind, it ends up being very open for other people too. They can receive it, and that's
It's like
where
it's
you.
like a treasure. It's like you're down in the dumps and you're kind of wondering what you're here for. And then you're sitting there, like maybe by yourself or with your friends, maybe over whiskey, maybe like a day after you had too much whiskey. And it's like you come up with a line or you come up with something that means enough to you that it feels like this little treasure, like when I wrote Birds or The Vine, like those songs felt like little treasures. And it was like, I may be a complete degenerate, but I've got this.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I've got this song. And, and then you kind of, I don't know. It's just kind of crazy. You just like it seems like, especially for you and I, that it's almost not even a decision we can really make. It's not like something we can really. I've wished several times that I could let music go, be a more, have a more secure job. But at the heart of it, I just don't. I don't think I could if I wanted to.
For sure.
And whatever that means, like if it means living out of a van, then fine. If it means, great success, then fine. But either way, I think it's something that we just have to do.
Totally, yeah. And I think that I want to talk about street performing, busking, because when you travel, when you live on the streets, when you live that kind of life, you kind of have a handful of options of getting by, and it's, you know, begging or making something or performing or the darker ends of things if you want, but to be a kind of a legitimate human being while doing that and still like serve some kind of purpose for yourself, I feel like those are your options generally. And busking is such a fine art that it takes a lot, and you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about your music with it. And I know you may be one of the most like proficient buskers as far as time put in, effort put in, and like serious dedication to it that I know. And I know a lot of buskers. I mean, maybe not. I may know a couple more that are just a handful of steps above you, but you're up there for damn sure. Can you maybe talk about your experience with that and what that's kind of done for you or been like for you?
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, now I've graduated to playing with a crate amp out on Pearl Street, and it's gotten to the point where I pretty much can call what I want to make that day, and say 3 out of 5 times I make what I wanted to make that day. But really, busking, I knew that I wanted to be a musician. I knew that my life wasn't going right, and not only did I have this thirst for travel and this thirst for like the unknown and just kind of seeing the country too, from from just kind of a completely clean slate standpoint, which it's like different. It's like you go to San Francisco with a bunch of money, you're going to have an agenda, or at least, you'll be able to like buy yourself into certain seats, right? But if you show up to San Francisco with nothing, you're just going to see what you see, and whatever happens to you happens, so when I went out and I made it to Minneapolis, I got out of the Greyhound station and found a $20 bill on the ground as I stepped out the door into like the actual, streets of Minneapolis. And of course I went and bought a Euro and then some rum and a Coca-Cola. And I just kind of sat down on a bench and I was like, shit, this is it. It's like, if I want to live, I've got to, because I never enjoyed any kind of begging. And I always knew that I wanted to do it with a guitar. Not that, I lost a couple guitars and, was too drunk to play. And so back in the day, I spanged and flew signs when I had to. But it was usually just when I didn't have an instrument. But kind of throwing myself into that life was just like, okay, got to figure it out. And I was on the Nicollet Mall in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I had to compete with buses. And I only had like 5-6 songs that I would kind of rotate. But I just noticed that people would stop, and they were stopped, like genuinely curious about where this voice was coming from and kind of like who I was, and curious as to why this like 21, 22-year-old kid was, on the streets of Minneapolis. But that's where I like found that I had something, like enough to like, once I made my first $20 bill busking, it was like, oh, well shit, maybe I shouldn't have been so down on myself about my singing. And then I think I was just loud for years, loud. and but with some sense of carrying a tone. But that was just throwing myself into the busking world in Minneapolis was where I kind of found my feet, and then I realized that I wasn't good staying put. If I stayed put, I'd figure out my kind of alcohol routine, and then it was too easy to just get caught on a nice, bender. And so I tried most of the time to just keep moving, and I would like wake up. Those were the best days hitchhiking, was when I'd wake up, buy a beer, go hitchhike and play all day, and just end up in a new town. And then at the night, when night fell, it was time for food and 40 ounce. And then so, although I was drinking a lot, it wasn't nearly. It didn't have as much a hold in me as it did when I was like stuck in Reno or SF, or really stuck anywhere where I could meet people that like to party.
Mm-hmm.
And so Boulder, Colorado being one of them. And so then, I went out to California. I mean, fast forward, came back, reconnected with you, met Christina. Fast forward, went out to California, and then we got back here with Emma being born. It was like I was serving tables, but I still needed more money. So what I knew was Pearl Street. And then people started treating me differently because I was clean, I was better dressed, a little more polished as a musician. And I've just kept that up. I mean, I put at least 10,000 hours out on Pearl Street alone, and not even including small towns everywhere. And so I owe busking and the need for that, that's why I'm able to be here. Was that I refined it. I'd meet certain people, and there's much difference that like a live show that I play than like my busking game. I've kind of found what works, but within it, I've been able to like come with not only full authenticity and sincerity, but also kind of make a small little successful business out of it. And then that got me some shows, and then the shows got good reception, and then it was like enough people said, what are you doing here on Pearl Street as opposed to like Red Rocks or at the Marquee or bigger stages. And then it was just kind of like, well, shoot, man, and I don't want to do anything else. So it's kind of it's been just life's been one big chaotic monumental mad moment that has always had this one like point of focus. Like despite that, I mean, 2 points of focus really. It's like, want to be a good father, want to be a successful musician who writes songs that do something positive. Because as I listen to stuff on the radio, it's just madness. But sorry, me and my rabbit trails. But to get to it, busking, I owe the fact that I can be a pretty much full-time musician. Like if it wasn't for the hours put in and the time on the streets, I don't think that I wouldn't have enough dark moments to be a genuine songwriter, and I wouldn't have gotten the practice.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point. You wouldn't have had enough dark moments to be the songwriter you are. Do you think that's a relevant element in your whole musical quest?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like I was very unconfident at the beginning of my hitchhiking and musical days, and now it's like I know how to like kind of zone in, and it's just like when I'm feeling it, when I feel like okay, things sound good, the monitors are right, then it's like I feel this freedom, and it's almost kind of like you hear, it's like when it's happening when you sink into the pocket as a musician. And you put in all this time, and then you got the ears, and then you can just, I think this is kind of the beginning of where I'm getting to this, but it's where, like, in my brain, I know that people are not just hearing and liking, but they're feeling it. And then their eyes are widening, and it's kind of like I'm becoming more Lucas, the performer. And I just don't think that I would have that ability if I hadn't gone through some of the things that I went through. Now, I don't want to encourage anybody to go drink copious amounts of liquor. But, I guess what it comes down to is you can't fake it. You can't write songs that you want to write, but you haven't felt and lived. It's like with teaching yoga, you can't just start being like, oh, yes, brother, namaste. Like, let me do some Sanskrit terms. Like, you got to be you. Yeah. And you got to be you. and people are gonna tell if it's not sincere, if it's fake. And so I think that no matter what kind of music you make, you're not gonna be successful if you're not being on it.
Hmm.
And it's me. I've happened to done a lot of crazy shit drinking and had a lot of pain in my life that didn't involve drinking. So, when I speak from those spots and from this authentic place of wanting to be a healer is really what it comes down to. And like, as much as I wish I had the time to get into like Ayurveda or, some crazy spiritualism, music is what's at hand right now for me to feel like I'm having some sort of impact as a healer in the world.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful, man. I absolutely think that music and creativity is a legitimate form of spiritual practice if you put it in that way. And what you're speaking of, it's like this alchemical process where you take all that darkness and all that pain and suffering and the foolishness and the embarrassment and all the crazy things you did, and then you turn them and you weave them into this new thing. You take the fibers of that crazy past and you weave them into this beautiful new tapestry. And that music, it's taking that darkness and it's turning it into light. And when people receive it, even if it's dark, even if it's gritty and talking about hard things, it's only impacting people on the level that they're willing to, or they're able to connect with it. And that's what you're saying, like that being authentic and being true, even if it is dark, it has this really beautiful ability to like inspire people. And I think that's a powerful form of spiritual work, for yourself and for others.
It's nice that they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Where I'm able to sort out my stuff, and then it's, it hits home for enough people and it's funny because I have a lot of people that are like, back when you're hitchhiking, you can kind of tend to be a little, I suppose that it's like this exact opposite of what really wealthy people do when they see like, crusty, dirty hitchhikers. It's like when you see somebody with a bunch of money, you're kind of turning your nose up at them like, oh, you don't know what real life is, And I've been able to kind of get through that. And now I find that, people, doesn't matter like what stage of life you come from. I'm able to, these songs land on all different types of people, and it's beautiful. But one thing that I've noticed that a huge difference, and a lot of it comes to like, recovery and just accepting your past. But back when you and I, when we were still living here, there was insecurity because I just felt like a lot of the actions that a lot of the shit that went down when I was drinking, it was just like, man, this is not me. But so I was very ashamed and much more like, kind of like, oh, let's not, I don't want anybody to know like how fucked up I am. But now it's kind of like you go through all this healing process, and you're like, it's becomes more of like a source of power. You're just like, yeah, stuff was crazy. And then you realize that if you can be honest with other people, especially other addicts, that you're definitely not alone. And I always felt alone because everybody else seemed to have their stuff together. and then you realize no one really has it figured out.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, man. Life's been crazy, and like interviews are hard for me. I have so much to say, but I feel like I end up just rambling.
No, man, I think what you just said was beautiful. It's a really nice topic to get into, and it clarifies a lot, and it's like even someone like me who, most of my interviews I don't know the people that I'm interviewing that well, but I know you very well, like the handful of years we spent together were like so intimate. It's so deep, when you live on the streets together and you're getting drunk together and you go to jail together, which you and I did. All these things, like you form these bonds, but you only know your perceptions. And like, it's been such a beautiful thing to see you through your process of recovery and to see where your art has taken you, and now you're recording these albums and still just getting after it hard. And I want to talk about both those things, but first I'd really like to see what you have to say about the process of recovery. And I guess specifics aren't necessary, unless you want to get into it, but like, how have you been working with that? And like, has your art kind of been a catalyst for it, or is it other things?
Oh man, it's a lot of different things. It's at the core of it, it's to be true to what I felt like I was supposed to be doing, you know? I feel like alcohol was kind of this, whether you want to, I don't want to put like a name to it, negative energy, the devil, whatever. It was like, I've always been told that like I have the type of personality when I walk into a room that if I'm in a good mood, people can feel it, and if I'm in a bad mood, people can feel it. So I know that I have this power to uplift or to bring down, depending. And it used to be just more, I guess I wasn't as conscious of it, and not that I'm as great as controlling my attitude all the time. I'm still very aware that I do have that ability. And so I do feel like there is, on this kind of like spiritual level, I don't think that, let's say that there is a devil. Like, I don't think he wanted me to actualize as, my positive self. And, I was already predisposed to alcohol. And so the heart of it was knowing that I was meant for more than being a freaking drunk waste of space. And it's like, I don't want anybody else to hear me say that, feel like they're a waste of space. They already feel it, and they already know that they don't feel good because they're not doing something they're supposed to be. They're not becoming what they're supposed to be. And it's just it's hard, because what and the way that you can find happiness is through that drink or whatever substance it be. Um, but you just have to, I don't know, eventually, and I've relapsed quite a few times over 6-7 years, but I'm very happy to say that since my kids are born, I've been sober 99% of the time. And when I did relapse, all but one time, or well, one or two times was, very short-lived, but the real bad ones were when I was out of the state, and I wasn't around my kids. So I'm happy for that they've been somewhat sheltered from that kind of madness. But it comes from wanting to be my higher self, knowing that drinking and drugging or whatever is not going to it's not going to do anybody any good. I mean, it took a long time for me to accept, going to AA. And not that I attend, I want to fake it and act like I attend all the time. I try to attend as much as I can, but things with music are pretty crazy. And what I found is that yoga has been one of the biggest healing aspects of my recovery. It's, I stay plugged into AA so that I know where I came from, and I have sober people to associate with, because it's not always easy talking to drunk people after gigs, it can be a little much sometimes. Not really so much tempting as it is more just kind of like, those are the moments where I feel kind of like a prick, because it's like, dude, you're just like, oh, I appreciate the compliment, but they're just the drunken speak that I used to speak, back in my face. Sometimes it's like, dude, I appreciate it, man. Now go get yourself a beer and a taxi. You know what I mean? But yoga has been equally beneficial. Just the mind, body, spirit connection that goes with it. Now I'm a teacher. I've taught. I got my yin certification, and yesterday we had the party for my 200-hour vinyasa certification, and then I'm going to do my hot immersion. And it's just been a space where, through working through your body and being uncomfortable all the time, it just kind of bleeds into other areas where you're able to go places where your heart or mind do not want to, and you find this honesty. It's like, okay, I did that thing. That was me that day, but that's not me today. Like, we find more flexibility and, being less rigid. It's just kind of yoga's like a big metaphor for kind of a life where one is taking action. It's constantly evolving, and I've been able to apply a lot of the principles of just breathing through uncomfortability and just being okay with where I'm at today. It's like, when I first started yoga, I couldn't hardly get my hands past my knees. Now I can do a bunch of interesting little poses and things that I never would have thought I would have been able to do. And it's just crazy. And I still have so much longer to go, but really, my children are a huge part of it. I knew at age 5 years old that I wanted to be a good father. I didn't have a dad around. There was something going on in kindergarten. And I think it was like, parents come to school and talk about their jobs. My mom had to work, and a lot of people's dads came in. And like, I remember I was driving home with my mom. She picked me up from school. But I was just looking out the window, and I remember just thinking, if I ever have kids, I'm sticking around. And they have been equally, it's kind of this little trinity. It's like having a recovery program, like the 12 steps, my children, of course, and yoga and music, I'll put kind of in the same pool because they are both my creative outlet. And so kind of like what's kept me sober. And, over a bit over a year ago, I went out again and screwed up, but, I've been able to string together quite a few years in between my little slip-ups. And my little slip-ups, while, somewhat destructive, have been nowhere near as destructive as the old me. And so, I have to deal with that. Like, I wish I could be like, oh, I've got 5 years clean and I'm just this sobriety badass, but I'm still just figuring it out and trying to go day to day and be, clean and the best person that I can possibly be. And I still to this day have that very critical voice, which, keeps me, in some ways it's negative because it makes me lose a little bit of self-worth because I can be so critical, but in a lot of ways it motivates me to bust my ass,
Yeah. I mean, that's where the true inspiration comes in. It's just like, you're doing what you can.
It's like I screwed up the 20s, dude. I got to hit the 30s hard and make up for time because, sometimes it comes down to little dumb stuff like, what am I going to do when I'm 60 years old? It's like, I can't be 60 and drinking. That's going to go nowhere. Like, I don't have any retirement. Like, I'm screwed if I don't make something go on with music, and that's a motivation. It's like, I want to put my kids through college if they choose to go. I want to be a positive community member, and it's like, just there's so many little things that motivate me to not drink. And the more that I evolve as a human being, like last night we had our yoga celebration, and there was a decent amount of wine and beer, and somebody brought tequila, and it's like, it used to be, I'm in this position where it's like I have to be strong and not touch the alcohol. And now it's just like, oh, there's alcohol around. Good for these people, And it's just gotten, it's become so much less of a thing. It used to be, it was just terrible, man. Trying to make it 3 days sober was just awful.
Yeah, man, that's honestly, it's so great to hear you say that because I know how hard it was. I mean, I know how hard it was for me. I know how hard it still can be. I mean, I've never dealt with the kind of addiction that you dealt with, I don't believe, but I abused my body well enough that I had a dependency and have worked with that for years and still, have moments where I'm like, okay, well, I probably shouldn't have another, that kind of thing. And I know how little it serves, and to see the progress, to see the movement for you, and it's not even like a thing for you at the moment, where you're just like doing your thing and you're pushing through, you're putting in the time, putting in the effort, and, taking the ugly stuff and using it for something beautiful. It's really encouraging. It's really awesome to hear.
Well, it's just, if anything, I guess that's kind of like what I hope to do or hope to be is, a positive, role model for other people that have gone through the same stuff. But it's kind of funny, like the alcohol is such an interesting, because I have to be honest, like I found a lot of healing through psychedelics back in the day. Like part of the reason that I was able to find sobriety the way that I found it was because of some serious medicine journeys back in the day. Now, I don't talk like that in recovery rooms, because I don't want to, that's kind of a touchy subject in there, but like one of the most powerful things that I remember, because a lot of people out there like don't understand alcoholism. They think, why can't you just stop? And it's like, forgive me for saying, but people with that mindset, I know that some people might be listening, it's like really a foolish thing to even say. It's like, it's completely foolish. People don't, just willy-nilly go throw their lives away and do terrible things because, they that's just who they really are. I mean, there really is a strong connection to the substance. And I don't know, a couple of years ago I heard, so the etymology of alcohol is al-cool, which I believe is either Sanskrit or Sumerian, which I think might be even the same thing actually, but which means spirit eater.
Hmm.
Like, cause that's like when people said like, you don't remember, being that fucked up and saying all those terrible things to those people, and it'd just be like, no. It's like, I don't. Might as well have been a dude. And, it's just, I don't know, man. It's a nice freedom to have. And, I quit smoking 6 months ago.
Oh, nice.
And that's nice, dude. That is such a nice thing to not be controlled by.
Yeah.
And, it's a much shinier existence. Still challenging, and, I have to be mindful every day about not getting cocky or not like thinking, because that's the thing about alcoholism is like some days I'll be like, I could probably drink and be fine. And then it's like I have to take some moments and be like, you know what? That's some dumb shit to say. What do you think, But
yeah, man, it's addiction and substance abuse and things like that come up a lot. Talking to artists, and talking to creative people, it's just one of those things that I don't know. We're attracted to it. I think a lot of people are attracted to it to some degree, whether you let it consume you or not. But I really enjoy when I get to talk to people who are, real about it and don't hide the fact that they went through it, or don't hide the fact of what it did to them, but can use that as fuel for what's going on. Because I know both of us have seen and have a mutual very good friend who's struggled with serious addiction and lives lost, and incarceration and all kinds of stuff that it's just heartbreaking to watch it happen. And people with amazing spirits and great potential, and they're certainly not doing it just because they don't care about life, or they don't have any responsibilities, or whatever it is, silly notion you might have about addiction. Like it is a spirit eater, man. It's nuts. It just chews right through you. And in dealing with that, using the fire that comes from it, it's powerful stuff depending on how you use it. And it's a really cool thing.
For some people it is medicinal, I mean, there's some people like, you hear about the blood pressure and a glass of wine a week and all that. It's like, yeah, okay. It's like, it sounds fun.
Yeah.
But not for my bloodline.
Yeah.
And it's funny because no matter who you are and what your substance is, and this is something that I do want to because I spent so much time hating myself over things that in retrospect, sure, they weren't really putting me in the best light, and probably had some people kind of be like, is this guy fucking real right now? But there is always somebody going through worse situations than you are, and you can always be thankful that it didn't get even worse. Because I realized when I went to Florida for rehab that I heard some stories that it was just instantaneously, just are you kidding me? Just things involving terrible things happening to children, people dying, just hearing some of these stories, you're just like, holy wow, this soul goes basically to the pits of hell, dude.
Yeah.
And, so for people out there, this kind of parentheses, but people out there who think that, they're too far gone and they've burned too many bridges, it's not easy to rebuild, but you can rebuild. You definitely can, and you can build a stronger bridge too.
For sure.
Not the same, but it can be, medicine in itself.
No doubt. Yeah, thank you for that, man. It's good to share that. Well, we've been going for a while, and I want to be sure to talk about your new album and the recording and the Kickstarter you just got funded and all that good stuff, and what people can expect from you.
Well, right now, so Falling Into Place is out there. A lot of the songs on there, that you knew them back when we were still hanging out, or at least may have heard them on social media before you left. But Falling Into Place was kind of a lot of getting a lot of the older yet dear to my heart songs out. Have you listened to the record yet?
What was up on SoundCloud?
Okay, yeah. So Walk on Water is kind of a new one that I'm really proud of that's on there. Manners is a new one, and then Mr. Reaper, which just got accepted for 105.5, the Colorado Sound out here. Those are kind of the newer ones, but the rest of them were, kind of just felt like these are the songs that really need to get out now. And then we did the Kickstarter, and that's going to be pretty much all new songs. And my songwriter, I don't know, it's like some of my newer stuff has been compared to Ben Howard. It's just a little bit more melodic with, still got that driving beat, but, it's kind of hard to explain where I'm going as a songwriter because it's like I'm in it. So I don't really criticize it.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm trying to write songs that feel good to play and, feel like good songs. But I really think that I'm kind of coming into my own as a songwriter, and I really feel like the next 2 or 3 albums are going to stand out far differently from Falling Into Place. And not to say that Falling Into Place is, how would I say? I think Falling Into Place is good as introducing my stuff, to the digital world or whatever. And it's a little bit more listener friendly, I would think, because a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be coming out with is going to be a little bit more, I don't know if edgy is the right word, but definitely a little more political on some things, and then just definitely more straightforward as far as like kind of facing your darkness, and just it's honest. It's not that everything wasn't honest, but it's coming from like where I'm at now with a lot more knowledge and strength, and kind of unapologetically in your face a little bit about things people might not want to realize about themselves, but still within the same flow of kind of this folk rock. I don't even know what kind of music I play. Like people are, I'm like, I don't know, folk rock, I think. I don't know. But yeah, we're going to have the Kickstarter was successful. Thank you to anybody that might be listening that donated. And that's just going to be a live album. And this is kind of more like dear to my heart. Like a lot of people really enjoy just me with the guitar. And I knew that if I wanted to be serious about music, I couldn't put out just me and the guitar and expect people to really to catch fire the way I wanted to catch fire. And these days, that's almost an impossible feat itself. Like, just, it's like I see Post Malone putting out the way he made it. Really, bro? But bless that dude. But, so you gotta, grind, and getting lucky is not as easy as people think. And so, wait, where's my train of thought going? So I'm putting out this live record. It's going to be 5, maybe 6 songs, and there'll be matching videos to go up on YouTube. And it's just going to be kind of like a little sign of where the music's going. It's kind of this, it's a limbo album. It's going to still kind of have this vibe of, the Falling Into Place energy, but also with this kind of a little hint towards what's coming in the future. Because my second full-length studio album, as long as I can figure out how to fund it, it is, in my humble opinion, going to be knock your socks off awesome. So, other than that, just I want to play. I'm starting a trio, and hopefully eventually if I can get it to a big enough level where there's a high enough demand that I can be touring with, another 4 musicians and be a kind of a household name, and that's the goal, I suppose. But really, I'm going to be, my main goal is to just be able to provide for my children and give them security through music. Now, whether that is just Colorado-based and, playing around Colorado and yoga, that's fine too. But for me, it's like the desire to play for a lot of people really doesn't, of course, I'd be lying if I didn't say, sure, it'd be nice to not have to worry about my bills to be paid. But the real motivation is to be able to touch more people,
Sure.
To be able to kind of validate the songs that I write, and then the fact that I've been unrelenting or relentless on pursuing music, because I've, could have gone a lot of different ways, and it's just this is something that I refuse to not do. And I feel like I have to see it to the end.
For sure. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think you put in some serious hours and some serious crafting, and I hope people will.
Still not enough.
What's that?
Still not enough.
Well, it's never enough if we're evaluating ourselves, but.
Yeah, totally. And I never feel like it's enough. But the other day I remember that song. Maybe you can tell me which song it is. You want more than you need less than you know. What song is that?
It's called Hunger.
Dude, that is one of the best lines. Like, a lot of your lyrics still pop out in my head, like, as I'm just doing random stuff, like feeding my dog or whatever. And, you know, I don't want to turn it around on you, but I hope you... Oh, actually, I want to watch that one where you kind of talked about your own creative process, because you are definitely one of the biggest inspirations in my life.
Oh, thanks.
No, I mean, from the bottom of my heart, like I always looked up to you. I always envied you, the intelligence that you wrote your songs with, and just the fact that you know, in this band of fools, you were the one with your shit together. You know, it was like,
I don't know about that, but
our mutual friend and I were always like, oh, I wish I could be more like David. You know? And it's just amazing to see you and, like, you know, doing your thing out there. And I'm just so happy that you guys are still together and raising your beautiful little girl. And it's just fun to see you happy, man.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate the ego stroke, especially while it's recorded. You know, now it's going to be out there.
No, that's the thing is people. I don't know. I feel like in this day and age where we've got all this crap. I posted something on Facebook where there's like some music video. The woman's literally just like making horrible gestures with her mouth, and it's like, man, if we can just get the world to like love real conscious music again, it's like I still to this day, dude, you are, you know, one of the most intelligent lyricists I've ever met. And that's, I'm not gonna stroke your ego too much.
Yeah, easy now.
Known that you are a phenomenal writer, and I'm excited to. Are you guys putting an album out soon, or what?
No, same boat, man. If we could get it funded, absolutely. But
yeah,
I'm not in the position to do another Kickstarter. It's just too much right now in my life. So.
Dude, that was way too much to move too.
Yeah, it's a process, but you did it, man. You got it, and.
I did it, but I tell you what, I almost quit music every day, but I was just like, man, I got to get off social media for a minute, man. I was so tired of filming myself, and I'm a perfectionist, so like literally any video that you saw had a minimum of 10 to 15 takes. Most of the time, I would eat up the memory in my phone from one video, and I'd have to go in and delete like 30 or 40, 45-second video clips because one thing wasn't perfect. It was ridiculous.
Oh my God. Well, that's the grind right there. People don't realize, like, yeah, oh sure, crowdfunding, that's easy. I'll have somebody else pay for my album. Right. That's a lot of work. There's a lot of effort, a lot of headaches. But it is a beautiful thing.
My goal is to, we're playing the Wheeler Opera House on December 1st as a trio. And that's a 503-seat theater. We're headlining the theater.
Nice.
And it's I mean, you know, I don't think anybody from the Wheeler Opera House is gonna watch this, but it doesn't make any sense how I got the gig, bro. It just doesn't. Like I sent out a proposal because I you know, good old, in the words of our good friend Rooster, a closed mouth don't get fed.
Amen.
And so. I don't care if this is a multi-million-dollar, you know, production company. I'm going to send them a press kit. And then, sure enough, got this show. And so my goal is that we kill this show and do a really good job. And then, you know, move to bigger stages throughout Colorado and then just can tour. And, like, you know, if I had to pick someone that I want to emulate their career, it'd probably be someone like Ray LaMontagne, who only tours for, like, 2 months at tops, you know? Because really... that's one thing. It's like music is my drive and like what I want to do, but not at the sacrifice of the development of my children. So I figure 2 months, you know, is enough time away. You can still be successful and pay the bills, you know.
Yeah, man. I hope you realize that for sure. It's a rough goal. It's a rough world to get into, but
Oh, definitely, man.
I have faith in what you got going on, and I want to say I really appreciate you being so candid and opening up with all this stuff. It's really great to get that close into the process and the dark spots. It's hard to be honest sometimes. So thank you.
Can I tell a story?
Yeah, man.
All right. So I went to the rainbow gathering. Fast forward, ran into a woman. At the time she was probably 22. Um, that I met at the rainbow gathering. She's like, "You want to go to Colorado Springs and party with us?" Had nothing to do. I was on Pearl Street playing. Had some money in my pocket. Sure. We go down to Colorado Springs. Anyways, I took some psychedelic. I don't even know what it was called, like the Vucadu seed or something. You soak in water for like a whole year. And anyways, long story short, I had to go to the hospital for about 8 hours. Lost my guitar. Lost my. I only had a pair of pants, and the reason I got the cops stopped me. They're like, "You're either going to jail or to the hospital." I wasn't trying to break in anybody's house. I couldn't find the house that I was supposed to be at. So they took me to the hospital. I wake up and I had to hitchhike back to Boulder, Colorado. And and I may have told this in another interview years ago, but it's one of my favorite stories. So at the time, obviously, was drinking and smoking tobacco and all that. And no one was picking me up outside of Colorado Springs. I looked like a just degenerate AF. And so I was like, I'm walking to Boulder until someone picks me up. And I'm walking and I'm walking. All I know is that I'm on the I-25 and no one's picking me up. And I'm just like, man, I would really like a cigarette. And there's so many empty packs on the side of the highway. Don't litter, people. But in this case, it was a blessing because finally, after saying enough prayers, I see this pack of Marlboro Light 100s 10 feet off the side of the highway. And I just had to convince myself to go check that pack. And I went and checked it. There was 18 cigarettes in there. And but I didn't have a lighter. So I'm walking and I'm walking. There's like run over, broken lighters. And I'm just like, man, for me at the time, I was like, oh, come on, God. Like, I need a lighter real bad, man. Come on. Help me out. And walked like another mile and see this looked like a beat old orange lighter, but I picked it up and sure enough, dude, it lit. So I had a cigarette. I was so happy, and I could see the marquee from the petrol station. I think it was a Sinclair at the time. I don't know what it is now, but I could see the sign, so I knew that I was close to where I might be able to bum a T-shirt off of somebody and catch a ride out, But I was like, okay, I really want to get to that gas station and buy a beer. I had a full pack of cigarettes almost, and I really wanted a sandwich and a beer, something in my belly anyway. And just sitting there thinking and praying. And I kid you not, dude, I look off, walking on the highway, and I look off at a 45-degree angle. And on a reed, fluttering in the wind, is a $10 bill just waving at me like, hey, here you go. Here's the answer to your little prayer there. Go get your beer, you jackass. And so I grabbed that $10 bill. And that was the moment where I was like, I don't claim to have any, for all I know, it might be a simulation where, like, literally a computer simulation of some sort. But if not, then it's, there's something going on. Because it was just like, that was a moment in my life where I was like, there is something more to live for than a bottle of booze. And I think I relapsed another 50 times after that. But it was just one of the most beautiful experiences of my life was like that moment. And then like another evidence of simulation theory is I used to grow weed in Northern California, and I was driving back. This is before my daughter was born. I was driving back to see Christina, and I noticed that some bats were flying around. And I was like, that's funny. You hit a bird occasionally, but you never hit a bat. And this thought went through my head. Literally 1 second later, a bat gets caught in my windshield wiper. Like, it wasn't even raining. It just hit the windshield. The wing went under the windshield wiper. And, like, I slowed down, and the bat was able to wiggle itself out. And I don't know if it was okay or not, but I tell you, that was one of the most chilling moments. And I still think about those 2 times all the time, man. It's just, I don't know, whatever we're in, it's an interesting and conscious something or other.
Wow, brother.
Simulation. Yeah, dude.
I don't know why you went there, but I'm so glad you did.
I don't know. Well, you know, random AF, that's for sure. But I don't know. I just I didn't get to tell enough stories.
No, it was
Those
great.
are like the stories that really, as far as kind of they always stand out to me.
Yeah.
Because it's like a probability level of getting, the pack of cigarettes is, stronger than not. And then the working lighter, on the side of a highway, sure. But the $10 bill just literally caught onto it was literally like this on this nice reed. And actually, that was the inspiration of the song Walk on Water. I'm going to send you this entire album right now, by the way. But the song Walk on Water has this line, my heart skips a beat when the wind hits the reeds and the sun takes a bow. And because it was getting close to sunset at the time. And so every time I play that, I still remember what I wanted and needed at the time being provided. And I don't know. I hope somebody finds some beauty in that.
No, man, that's so great. The last question I usually ask people is for a little nugget of wisdom or a little tidbit of advice. And I was just about to ask you that, and you're like, hey, can I tell a story? And I want to just leave it right there. We're almost at an hour. We've been talking. It's been a super great conversation. I think that's a perfect place to wrap it up because that's kind of the epitome of you. You just got this wellspring of joyful things that even though the context might be dark, oh yeah, I'm a degenerate, I'm an alcoholic, but hey, this God just handed me this $10 bill, It's beautiful, man. Thank you.
It is, man. Well, thank you for being somebody that I know, man. I love you to death. And let's try to not be so much strangers. I've been kind of trying to get out of being caught up in the whole grind. And, sometimes I feel like we get too caught up in forgetting, that what really matters. And sometimes we let relationships go or communication slide because we just have to survive. And I'm trying to kind of find a balance between that. So I will try to be a little more communicative.
Likewise. I'm not great at it, that's for sure. But
no, I feel you. It's tough with kids and all that, man.
Yeah, it is. But anyway, I want to say, do you have any other upcoming shows or anything you want to announce or get out there? Or
just doing local stuff, the No Name Bar out here, and then some random spots in Denver. Let's see, Ophelia's, we're there in January. People can go to lucaswolfmusic.com and see the schedule, all the posts and all the new shows. Looks like we're doing another CD release party at the Larimer Lounge on January 31st, playing with Clay Rose from the Gasoline Lollipops and another to-be-announced band. But really, right now, I'm kind of now that I finished that 200-hour yoga teacher training, I'm trying to just fill the calendar for the next year or two. And I'm also looking for a manager. So, but the album is available on iTunes and Spotify. I've got 6 monthly listeners now.
Woo.
Big, bro. Big deal. Yeah, everybody can find out anything they need to know on my Facebook page, Lucas Wolf Music. Instagram, Lucas Wolf Music, and lucaswolfmusic.com.
Cool, brother. Yeah, I'll have the links up in the show notes on this, and I'll, anything that's relevant up there, people can connect right through there. So it'll all be ready.
How'd the interview go?
What's that?
I said, how'd the interview go?
Well, we're not done yet.
That's cool too.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. Give me a minute. I just want to say, tell everyone here, thank you everyone so much for listening. Thank you, Lucas, for being here with me today.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me, man.
Much appreciated, and we will catch you all next time. Much love.
Won't you shake my way? I got a couple of mountains I gotta pay, and I've been holding on, Fear the fear of falling, fear the fear of falling down, fear of falling on down. And oh, Mr. Reaper, won't you skip my name? I got a couple of boxes I wanna check before my grave. One be healing, the other sparking a chain. Thing about a dream is you don't know when you're in one. If you're looking for hard times, show you where to get them. If you're looking for a line, comes with a smile, you ain't gon' find it here. So carry on my wayward child. If you're looking for advice, looking for answers, I can't tell you nothing, I'm still searching for my master. One thing I can say is it appears the hardest part is in facing all your demons and embracing all your darkness now. Well, it's all just a dream. Well, it's all just a dream. Am I waking up or is my sleep getting deeper? See, I'm picking up transmissions just like apples from the ether. War inside my mind between the dark and the light, and I fall somewhere in the middle, maybe slipping side to side. Got these angels on my shoulders, they won't leave me alone. And in the darkest of my days, they say, sweet boy, you're almost home. Don't worry about a thing, boy, just keep pushing on through. And you should probably drop your baggage, let that baggage carry you. Well, it's all just a dream. 'Cause it's all just a dream. Oh, money maker, won't you shake my way? I got a couple of mountains I gotta pay, and I've been holding on. Feel the fear of falling, feel the fear of falling down, fear of falling on down. And oh, Mr. Reaper, won't you skip my name? I got a couple of boxes I wanna check before my grave. One be healing, the other sparking a chain. And one be healing, the other sparking a chain.